poker's legendary champions, next generation stars, and tireless ambassadors of the game, sharing their wisdom and guiding your journey to high achievement on the green felt. This is Tactical Tuesday on Chasing Poker Greatness with your hosts, Brad Wilson and Jon Chai.
Welcome, my friend, to another episode of the Chasing Poker Greatness podcast. As always, these are your hosts of Chasing Poker Greatness, Coach Brad Wilson and Jon Chai. Jon, you ready to get tactical?
Yeah, we got two hands today where I got in some interesting river spots. That's about as good as we can get for the theme this week.
I think we agreed upon the theme as you just needing help with two spots that have no commonality at all. One is like a loose formation, one is a tight formation, one's a 4-bet pot, one's a 3-bet pot, one you're in position, one you're out of position. So basically, we just need help. This is
Jon needs help on the river. That'll be the title.
Yeah. Jon needs to learn. Jon needs help. All right, so why don't we just dive into this first hand if you want to break it down for the listener?
Yep. So both of these hands are going to be at 500 zoom. First hand here, I'm in middle position with pocket queens. I open. I'm going to assume a reg in the cutoff. 3-bets me. Everybody else folds. I 4-bet the queens and the reg calls. I think everything pre-flop is pretty standard. All the sizings are pretty normal reg sizings. So not much to talk about pre-flop.
You stick in 22 big blinds, so there's 227 in the pot. You have 386 behind. Villain calls. You have queens. Flop is jack, 4, tray, rainbow.
Yeah, really good flop for queens, obviously. Very happy to see no overcards and definitely some worse hands that can get stacked here. So I start out with what's going to be my standard c-bet sizing as a pre-flop 4-better with a quarter pot. I bet $56 into 227 and the cutoff calls.
All right.
I think maybe we could start talking about talking more in depth about strategy here on the turn. I think there are a lot of options. I have just under pot left behind. I have 330 in my stack. The pot is 339. I think I could check here and jam the river. I think I could check jam here. If I do check and the cutoff bets, I think I could just jam here. Maybe I could even bet a quarter pot again or like a small size. What do you like here?
I would probably start by checking the turn.
Mm-hmm.
I think that the in-position player here, like, they're going to have maybe some backdoors, king, queen of diamonds, king, queen of spades, maybe like the ace-jack suiteds. They're also going to have some like pre-flop traps, I would think too, like maybe aces or kings, because such a tight formation lends itself to trapping in position, I think. So, like, villain's also going to have jacks. So, I don't know, like, I would just check and then probably just be planning on jamming rivers. But at least checking, letting villain's lower equity hands stab or try to put some money into the pot. And then kind of going from there.
Yeah, I think we have had the exact same thought process on the turn. So, I do start out with a check.
And interestingly, I think you would much rather face a bet on the turn than a check back. Like, when villain checks back, I think they maintain, again, the SPR's like around 1. So they could easily check back their traps on the turn too. And I think like the hands that they bet or stab with are probably more likely to be, bottom of range type hands.
Gotcha. Okay. That's going to punch a hole in my river thought process soon.
Oh, and they bet small.
Yeah, so we get the really small size from the cutoff. What do you think about this? Like, does this change your opinion on like what their range looks like once they use this, almost like 1/10 pot size bet?
Not really. I mean, I don't really know what to make of it other than like it looks like it could possibly be a cheapish bluff. it could also look like it's an induction bet. I mean, it could easily be an induction bet. It could be like small bet on the turn to set up like a bigger jam on the river because they don't want to bet too much on the turn to leave too little leave not enough money to really jam and maintain fold equity. I suspect, I mean, I'm tainted because I know the result. I saw the hand play out in the replayer. So I mean, I think it's easier to find this hand with their traps than it is with their bluffs.
It's easier to find this size with their traps.
Yeah. It's like, how often do you see somebody with like, king, queen of diamonds here choose a 10th on the turn?
What size would you expect to see? Like just rip the turn?
So they have 320 left. They bet 100. That's like, I mean, maybe the size is just like really good
with everything.
Feels like the size is just really good with everything, to be honest.
Yeah.
They could even be betting like 10s or something,
right?
Like to check behind, or 9s or 8s, to like over realize. So, yeah, I think this is a really good bet.
Yeah, I like the size a lot too from Villain, and I think I was mostly stuck on the last point that you just made. That like I thought that the size might just be like maybe all their Jack X, maybe even a hand down to like 10s and 9s, doing exactly what you just mentioned, betting the turn cheap almost to kind of like stunt the action and get like a really cheap showdown on the river. It probably makes it less likely that they face a jam from me, and much more likely that they face a check from me on the river. Again, like you said, I do think they can certainly have all their traps. I think aces can bet the size, kings can bet the size, pocket jacks can bet the size. I wasn't so sure about like if they would use the size as a bluff. Not that it's unreasonable to bet the size and then jam the river. I just thought that it might be a little bit more likely that they just jam the turn with some of their bluffs. So I was mostly weighting them towards their kind of marginal-ish showdown hands that are trying to find a check on the river.
I mean, the way that their range is made up, like, this should probably just be a range bet for them with everything.
Yeah.
Like, it just feels like, their bluffs can go small. Their hands that they're trying to over-realize can go small. Their traps can go small. I mean, I just really love this sizing. I think it has a ton of utility, and I think it's just really, really, really good by Villain.
Yeah.
But, speaking of, like, those sort of middling type hands, I think, like, I would be inclined to think the same, and it kind of leads me to wanting to call the turn and probably donk jam the river. On a lot of rivers.
You don't know how happy I am to hear that.
So that, like, because, the hands like 10s or 9s or 8s, right? Like, they're just going to go straight through to the river, over-realize, and life is good for them. Whenever they do have a trap, we're going to end up paying off 2 bets anyway, right? Like, we're not folding to the river jam. If they have jacks, aces, or kings, then, like, they just got it. So we go broke every single time they have the better hands. So we do want to put their bluff catchers or those lower equity type hands in a situation on the river and maybe let those hands call as well. So, like, yeah, I think just calling turn and then donking river makes a lot of sense to me.
Yeah, that's actually exactly what I was thinking on the turn. That's why I decided to call here instead of check jam or anything else. And yeah, I was fully intending on donking pretty much every river. Don't think it's not great that the backdoor flush gets there. Like, they certainly do have some bluffs that are like,
what, ace jack of clubs,
ace 10 of clubs, maybe.
Yeah,
like a hand.
I mean, it's very, very few because we have the queen of clubs.
Yeah. Maybe they don't have as many. Yeah, maybe the club is like really, really irrelevant. But anyways, even in game, I didn't really care. And like my thought process was exactly what you just said about trying to put their bluff catchers into a spot where they might put in all the money. Sometimes with their, I assume Jack X to just call off here quite frequently. I don't know what 10s does, but I would like to like at least, put that hand in a spot instead of just letting them check behind every single time and then paying off their aces, kings, and jacks every single time.
Yeah. So for the podcast listener, the final board, the flop was Jack 4 tray, 1 club. Turn was a 7 of clubs. River was a 5 of clubs, which puts up a 4-liner. completes the backdoor flush, but Jon does have the queen of clubs, and like we said, they don't have a ton of backdoor flushes available. I don't think a 6 is ultra reasonable in their range here. I don't think they 3-bet. Maybe they have 6-7 suited, but we're kind of scraping the bottom of the barrel. So an effective blank. I just don't think this changes too much. So you just go for it on the river.
Yep. We put in the last 284 with a river donk.
Yeah.
And get pretty quickly called.
Nice.
Is it? No.
Not so nice. Aces. You're just destined to get stacked here, I think.
Yeah. I don't think we actually get to learn very much from this exact hand because he has, one of the traps. I think a hand that I would think that I could learn something from if I did donk and get called would be if he called with a hand like Jack 10 suited or pocket 10s, I'd be like, wow, this donk is great. I'm gonna keep doing it all the time. I'm still gonna keep doing it because he did. I got to run into one of those hands first to see how it works. But yeah, again, this is just a spot where I'm gonna get stacked no matter what.
Yeah, you went broke, but I think you went broke in the right way, and there are definitely good and bad ways to lose your stack. And at least in this situation, when you went broke, you gave Villain a chance to have bluff catchers. So yeah, I think you played the hand very well. So.
I think the downside, though, and I do want to mention this, I was going to ask you this, is the downside to donking the river is that we don't give his bluffs a chance to jam, just his king, queen of diamonds or whatever. We're sort of letting those hands off the hook. Is that worth putting their bluff catchers into this tough spot?
Probably. I don't know how many bluffs they have, really. We've got 2 queens. So, king, queen of diamonds, king, queen of spades. I still think ace, king just rips it pre-flop. Yep. So, maybe ace, queen of diamonds, ace, queen of spades.
Yeah. Ace 10 suited.
Maybe ace 10 suited. So we're talking 6 combos or so.
Yeah.
And then I think they have probably all 10s, probably all 9s, a bunch of Jack X. So yeah, I think you're targeting a larger portion of their range by the donk instead of checking and hoping that they jam with their bluffs.
Right. Whew. So, wow, wasn't sure what you were going to say about this hand. I don't think I've ever played a hand this way where I was planning on donking the river, but something that, I don't know, I've been thinking about a little bit more often, especially when I check the turn and face the really, really small bet. Something that I do a lot with hands that are just trying to get to showdown. So glad you agreed with everything.
They get to over-realize, right? They don't necessarily, the out-of-position player doesn't necessarily want to check raise because they have traps. And so, you bet small on the turn in position. Villain calls, they naturally check the river, and you just check behind with 10s, 9s, or 8s. Mm-hmm. And basically, if the turn checks through and you have aces, or the out-of-position player has, aces, kings, or queens, they're most likely going to be jamming the river, and that's just not so great for us.
Right.
So, yeah.
I
think you played it really well and just ran into the trap.
Yeah.
What can you do?
Yeah.
All right. So hand number 2, where Jon's throwing up the bat signal, and that's all I have.
All the money goes in again on the river.
All the money goes in again. That's Jon's theme here. Stick around.
Are you a lone wolf searching for the ultimate pack? The CPG Wolf program is a close-knit brotherhood hell-bent on one thing only: chasing poker greatness. Powered by bleeding-edge wolf strats and led by Coach Brad and his lieutenants, CPG Wolves are systematically prepared for almost any spot they'll encounter on the green felt. If you want to plug into an elite team and have a step-by-step game plan to realize your full poker potential, you can apply at cpgwolves.com. Space is limited, and the pack is only as strong as its weakest member. So only the hungriest, grittiest, and most driven will be accepted into the program. Applications are open. at cpgwolves.com.
All right, welcome back from the break, and now let's just dive in, John.
Yeah.
Let's just dive into this second hand. You need help. You're desperate. Let's see what goes on.
So we're playing more 500 zoom. Action folds around to the small blind, who I think is a reg. Obviously hard to tell when you're playing zoom. He opens to $15. I have ace 8 offsuit. I 3-bet from the big blind to $45. The small blind calls 45, and we go to a jack 8 deuce flop with 2 diamonds. So I flop middle pair. Small blind checks. I'm probably just going to be checking middle pair all day here. So check on the flop. Turn is the king of spades. Small blind starts out with a pot size turn bet. Yeah, I guess we can stop here and just start talking about thoughts.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't mind betting the flop, to be honest with you. Like, I think that it's hard for villain to have a ton of value check raises on this board. So, like, I don't even really mind betting and getting check raised on the flop because, like, I just, maybe they're check raising like ace jack for value. They need to be check raising like maybe ace jack or king jack for value in order to have like something reasonable. But like most check raises, I think are just going to be like, gut shots, straight draws, diamonds. They only really have deuces, and maybe some like jack 8 suiteds, like 2 combos of them. So like, I don't mind starting out by betting the flop. I think checking behind is somewhat reasonable as well. On the king turn, villain betting pot. Again, I think it's hard for them to have a lot of natural value. Like they're repping 2 pair plus. On the turn, maybe they can have like king queen. I don't know if they have king 10, if they go down that far. So, I mean, I'm still like just calling the turn. I think they have like ace 10, they have queen 10, they have 9-10, they have a bunch of diamonds.
Plus, really like maybe just like random air that does the
just like
back the flop, right?
Yeah, that's not even factoring in just the random 2 cards that they have in front of them that they just decide to go bananas with. So like, I think that they just have a lot of natural lower equity hands, not a ton of super natural high equity hands. So in a decent spot to call versus polarized range.
Yeah, I really like everything that you said about the flop and them just not having very many value check raises or even many value hands here that can bet pot because jacks 3-bets pre-flop, kings obviously 3-bets pre-flop. There's only 1 combo of 8s left and 3 combos of deuces. I don't think I would be surprised that if they call a 3-bet out of position with a hand like jack 8 suited, so I wouldn't even give them credit for that. I'm obviously going to discount all the other 2 pairs, jack deuce and 8 deuce. Actually, I didn't even really think about betting the flop for those reasons, but a lot of that came in to my thought process on the river. So we'll save it for when we get there.
I think it's an important thing to think about, like when deciding whether or not to c-bet with these type of hands, is really asking yourself what natural value do they have to check raise here, and if they're lacking in natural value, then like you can bet and feel pretty safe about betting and getting check raised. You block like one of their natural value check raises too,
right.
Which would be a set of 8s.
So villain small blind bets pot on the turn. I call. River is a big brick, the 3 of clubs. So now the board is jack 8 deuce king 3. The diamonds have bricked, and small blind puts in $368 into a pot of 264. So about a 1.5x pot overbet on the river. Not too shocked to see the size once they, already go very polar on the turn. I think this is, I don't know, somewhat expected size, I guess, just to see on the river. Do you want to say something here before I go into what I was thinking?
So just to recap, the board's king, jack, 8, deuce, tray. Villain 1.5x's on the river. You've got third pair, ace kicker. The only thing that I would say is like again, they they don't have a ton of value. They've got a bunch of natural bluffs. The river's a blank, so lose formation pre, match the wager.
Yeah, that's pretty much what I was thinking. I guess like just a little bit more detail. If I was to lose here, I think the two hands I would expect to see are King Jack and Pocket Deuces. I think Pocket Deuces probably makes the most sense. I think King Jack offsuit likely three bets, or sorry, excuse me, four bets at some frequency. I think I guess King Jack suited is possible as a
Do you think it's the
just
worst
what?
with like King Queen? I think King Queen's pretty cool here.
Yeah,
Potting, overbet ripping for value.
yeah. Kind of using similar logic to my logic in the first hand, right? Where all the better hands you're likely going to get stacked by or lose a big pot to, anyways. At least put my bluff catchers in a tough spot so that you can get paid off when you do have the best hand sometimes, instead of just letting me check back, Queen Jack or Jack 10 or pocket nines, pocket tens, something like that.
Right, like they're really worried about like Ace King.
Yeah.
You know, I mean maybe King 8, like Ace King and King 8, but like if they check, Ace King is almost certainly going to be putting money in on the river.
Mm-hmm.
King 8, it will certainly be putting money in on the river. So like basically, your check behinds with like tens, nines, 8x, even some Jack X, Jack 10, Jack 9 suited, maybe
Mm-hmm.
Queen Jack suited, can check behind the flop. So I think like expanding value range to King Queen here as the out of position player is quite good.
Yeah. I like that a lot now. That's not something that I was thinking about in game. I don't know if that would have like swayed
I don't know that it
made me to
should.
fold.
I
Yeah.
don't. I don't think most people see that door, like in real time, especially in Zoom. You know, they don't have the benefit of sitting here and talking about it for 10 minutes straight.
Right.
But I do think that the situation sets itself up pretty well for expanding to just jamming King Queen.
Okay. Yeah. Another thing that I was worried about here is that just relative to where I am in my range, Ace 8 is going to be pretty far down in this spot.
Mhm.
Like I assume I'll have much better hands. You know, even just all the Jack X that checks behind. I'll probably have some two pair, like a hand like King 8, maybe even King Jack checks behind. So one thing that I was going to ask about this hand is that like when you are this far down in your range, how hard should how much time should you be how much time should you spend thinking about whether to call this 1.5x on the river, or should you just kind of be like, look, I got way better hands, I don't have to you know really deal with this headache with a hand this far down.
I mean, in this situation, I wouldn't think too much about it just because it's so easy for the small blind to get out of line here and just have way too many bluffs relative to how much value they have. So like when they can have 9, 10, ace 10, ace queen, I guess ace queen's probably four betting, ace 10, queen 10, maybe even like 7, 9 or something like that. Like they just have so many available bluffs, and once they polarize the turn, it's quite likely that they're just going to rip the river too. So I don't know. I don't really think about it because in this spot, because like they have so many available natural bluffs that if they expand their bluffing region and just bluff all of those, then yeah, I don't care where I'm at. I'm just gonna call everything.
That's funny. I was asking that question from the perspective of like, I'm so far down in my range that when I face a bet this big, like I just don't want to think about it and just fold and just know that I have lots of better hands I can call. And sounds like you're saying, well, no, you are saying like, doesn't matter where I am in my range. They just have so many bluffs. I'm not going to think about it and just call.
Yeah, if villains are like naturally over bluffing here, then you just get to call down much lighter, right? Like it's the exploit. Like they're over bluffing exploitatively, so we overcall as a defense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Okay.
I mean, if it's a spot like where they have a lot of natural value, then that's like one thing. But here it's like, bro, you got top two pair. You got top two pair. You flop bottom set. You flop bottom set. You get my stack. Like,
Okay. Yeah. So don't, in these wide range spots where villain is lots of natural bluffs available to them, and maybe you're playing in a pool where villains are likely to be very, very aggressive or even over aggressive. Just adjust by calling down really light and not even spending a ton of time thinking about whether third pair is a good call or not.
And I think like loose formation plays a major role here too. Like hand number 1 was very tight formation. This one super loose, right? Small blind open, big blind 3-bet, small blind call. Like they just have so many different combos of hands that can bluff that like, just flick it in.
And that is what I do. Flick it in with the ace-8. And we get some good news.
Some good news. We got our money back from the first hand.
Yep. So villain does end up having queen 10 of spades. So he flopped a gut shot and then turned an open ender and decided to go crazy with his open ender. I don't think it's actually, I said go crazy, but I don't think it's that crazy. I think the line that he took is pretty reasonable. Maybe
Agreed.
Exactly the line that I would have taken too. So just a cooler for him.
What hand would be unreasonable here for them to bet pot on the turn and overbet jam the river? Ace 10, 9 10, 7 9, diamonds.
I guess everything is reasonable.
Right,
I don't know.
like
I mean, like, this is like a very natural bluff, I guess is what I should say. It's
sure, but so is ace 10 and 9 10, right?
Yeah, but those
and
hands are reasonable.
Diamonds. That's the thing. Like you have excess natural bluffs and limited value. Yeah, we call a lot.
No. I wonder if that says anything about bluffing this spot. You know, like once I check back the flop, should you take this line? Like, you know, I think when I check back the flop, I am sort of saying that I have some sort of showdown, or you know.
Yeah, it depends on the villain. Like, if you're gonna call down with third pair every time, then probably it's not the greatest spot to be bluffing. Yeah. If you're gonna fold like a jack to the pot and then the overbet rip, well then it's a great spot to be bluffing. So like,
gotta put your
really
stack in once to find out who you're playing against, and then adjust from there.
Well, it's Zoom, so you don't ever know anyway. I would say like humans trend to being risk averse, and so like just put them in a spot for all their chips with third pair, and like most people won't call.
Yeah.
So, there you go. You played the hands very well. You didn't need help after all. That's the twist to this story here.
I'm on a little Tactical Tuesday heater, I think. Not money wise, but just, you know, getting the Coach Brad approval on hands played. I don't think I've ever gone this long without a why would you do that on the turn? Like comments.
Yeah, why are we even making Tactical Tuesdays anymore? We just turn it on. Yes, John played well, and then turn it off. Boom. Let's move on to next week. You figured it out, John. You figured out how to play poker well. Congratulations.
It only took like 75 episodes.
Well, with that said,
see you next week.
What do we do? Yeah, I guess we'll see you next week.
Thanks for listening to Chasing Poker Greatness. You can subscribe on Apple Podcasts or on your favorite podcast app. Go to chasingpokergreatness.com to get the newsletter, join the Greatness Village community, book a coaching session, or dive into the latest data-driven poker courses. Follow the show on Twitter @CPG Podcast.